Eric Friedman brings over 40 years of experience in community economic development and real estate. As president and founder of Friedman Group Ltd., Eric has provided commercial, industrial, and workforce housing real estate services to businesses, not-for-profits, government, and investors. Eric has founded, supported, and facilitated numerous groups to benefit St. Louis and Missouri, including founding and co-chairing the St. Louis Transit Alliance, a coalition of 40 organizations working to improve and promote light rail and public transportation. He was a founder of the Coalition for Historic Preservation and Economic Development that passed the Missouri Historic Tax Credit. Eric serves as president and head coach of Housing and Community Solutions, Inc., a not-for-profit involved in community and economic development and affordable housing. He founded and organized Walk Live St. Louis in 2012, an event to help give community leaders and members the skills to create walkable, bikeable, and safe communities. He also was a founder of the Neighborhood Market Drill Down that developed better demographic data on the true buying power of this city and underserved communities in the North St. Louis and North St. Louis County. So without further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Eric Friedman.
Oh, it's great to be here with you. I had the great pleasure of being on the tour yesterday, seeing a little bit of 8th Street, 10th Street redevelopment, a co-op, a new co-op over there in the Speedway community. I'm looking forward to telling you about what we've done in St. Louis in terms of building sustainable communities and some of the activities and also some of the issues in terms of organization. Because no matter where you are, what you're doing, these issues will present themselves, both the good, the bad, and the ugly, basically. So the outcome we started with at the Historic Tax Credit Coalition was that we wanted to create a place where the creative class, knowledge workers, young people wanted to live and work. We were losing our young people in St. Louis. And we thought we could do something about that. CEOs for Cities suggests that young people decide where they want to live as opposed to finding a job first or where they want to work. So we had a great opportunity. We had people leaving our city. We had 100 buildings downtown that we've redone with the Historic Tax Credit. We brought 5,000 new residents to town. We've created a new city. It's the Washington Avenue Loft District. It's one of the great streets in America now. It was formerly a garment district. Like a lot of industries, it was consolidated in one particular area. And then when the garment district died in the United States and in St. Louis and in Missouri, those buildings became vacant. So we started the Historic Tax Credit Program in 97. It really went into place in 98. And between 98 and 2011, we've gotten the result of 100 buildings, 5,000 new residents in downtown St. Louis. CEOs for Cities told us that we had the largest increase of college graduates by 87%. We got up to 2,700. When you start at 1, it's real easy to increase those percentages. We had the largest percent of young people, college graduates, moving into a CBD, a central business district, than any other community in the country. And they call the CBD basically 3 miles from the downtown. The other outcome and what we were really looking for was the creative class, knowledge industry workers coming to St. Louis to create an entrepreneurial explosion. We thought that would happen. And beyond my wildest expectations, it had. So we had this great explosion of entrepreneur activity. We started an incubator. We did the deal in an old May Company building. Macy's now is there. We started with 12,000 square feet. We're up to 62,000 square feet. And we have all this seed capital coming to town too. We've got a grant program, the Art City Grants, that gives out $50,000 to 11 companies. People are coming from all over the world to start a company in St. Louis because of this grant program. In addition, they give 2 of those companies an additional $100,000 of follow-on capital. It's truly amazing what's going on. The National Trust says that St. Louis is one of a dozen distinctive destinations in the United States in 2010. We've had a difficult relationship with the National Trust because they also funded through a new market tax credit the demolition of one of 3 marble office buildings in the United States. I tell you that story because sometimes when you pull back the curtain, you see what's really going on. It's not always what you think it should be or could be in terms of institutions and what those institutions are doing, and also in terms of their self-interest, basically. How did we get here? We had a flight from the city. Basically, we had a problem with also, we couldn't rebuild these buildings because we had low housing cost. That's phenomenal, provides great value, but we had very high construction cost. So we couldn't rebuild these buildings because of this imbalance, basically. And in 1986, the federal historic tax law was changed, and it went from 25% to 20%, and our historic renovation dropped off by 90%. We led the country prior to that in historic renovations. And when that happened, we saw 90% of it just fade away. Also, from 1950, when we had an 800,000 person population in the city proper, it's gone to 300,000 presently. So we had a lot of flight, particularly white flight. We were also, as I mentioned, we have a problem with retaining our college graduates. We have 17% of the population, adults 25 and older, according to the census, that have a bachelor's degree. And we're ranked 27th out of 35 peer cities. We have phenomenal educational institutions, Washington University, St. Louis University, University of Missouri at St. Louis, but we were losing our young people. So that's why we were working on creating this place that you've heard about. Millennials want to live in these kinds of urban spaces, basically. So how did this come about? I'm going to begin to tell you how we brought about this coalition and how we got these results. There was a champion, and I believe a lot of efforts are formed by a champion, both efforts like this, civic efforts, and also companies. There's usually a champion at the heart of this who champions the cause and takes it to fruition. Our champion was a guy by the name of Jerry Schlichter, an attorney who fights for the underdog. He works for firemen and women who are being abused in a process, or firemen who die because of the equipment wasn't appropriate and the company knew the equipment wasn't appropriate. He also has recently gotten involved in pension funds and the abuse of pension funds. He's not involved in real estate. He doesn't practice in that area. He's just a civic white knight, if you will, unlike myself, who is involved in the industry and makes money on this. So I believe that champions, our groups of champions, are really critical. So in a way, all of you in this room are championing the cause that we're all working on here together. And I think it's really important, not just for Indiana, not just for Indianapolis, but it's really important for our country also. If our country is going to be sustainable, we've got to do some things differently. For a very smart country, we don't act very smart a lot of the time. We don't take the long view of very many things. We don't have a housing policy. We don't have a good energy policy. You name it, a good healthcare policy, a good education policy. A lot of times we know what the issues are, and it's pay me now or pay me later. And we're going to pay a big price for our lack of intention here. So he developed a strategic tool. He saw the federal credit working. He thought we should develop a state credit. He had a vision and thought we could replicate the program and actually improve upon it too. So he put that out to people, and we started down the road, and he began to identify allies. He also knew that our legislature was rural in nature and was controlled by rural individuals. So he really understood the need to balance that rural legislature and the program with the urban mainstream. And so all across the state, we began to develop information and data on where were the eligible projects that could be done if we pass this state tax credit and what projects had already been done, so that each legislature, as we went to visit them, could understand this is the value we've already created, and we could create more value in your community if you help us pass this, this legislation. He also was very aware that it was very difficult to get things passed, particularly in 1 year, and he understood the obstacles, basically. So we started to build a coalition. He came to me. Jerry was a friend of mine. He asked me to get the Missouri Realtors involved. We have 22,000 members in the state, 7,000 in St. Louis. I went to our board at the State Association, which I was a member of, and got the Missouri Realtors involved. We have a very effective lobbyist, a good old boy who's in Jeff City, halfway between the state, kind of in a rural community. And Sam Licklider is a very effective guy. He came to St. Louis. We educated him and sent him back down to Jeff City, basically. And we got our 22,000 realtors across the state involved in this whole process. And the coalition was founded, launched, and we started bringing together constituencies. I believe very firmly, and I've been involved in politics since I came back from Vietnam in '68, that we started working with the New Democratic Coalition, that we have to work with developing political power and economic power, and align those powers behind the issues that we're working on. And we have to frame those issues in that kind of way. So we developed a very broad-based coalition that involved all these kinds of groups: developers, realtors, preservationists, architects, mayors, governmental officials, sprawl advocates, anti-sprawl advocates, transportation advocates, all kinds of folks involved who were going to financially benefit or whose communities were going to benefit from this whole process. Tourism groups, folks like that. A very powerful group is the last group on the list, Metropolitan Congregations United. Somebody mentioned Isaiah here earlier. I think it was Anita, maybe. So there's these church groups all across the United States that are coming together around social justice issues, around equity issues. And we had, at one point in time, a meeting with 600 people in the room from Metropolitan Congregations United. And we had the elected officials come, and the elected officials were asked to sign a document in front of 600 people that they would support our agenda, including the Missouri Historic Tax Credit. I think that's very, very powerful. We have to really understand the political process. We have to organize people. And if you can tap into a group like these congregations who are motivated at a very high level, have a lot of energy, some of whom are retired, don't have a lot else to do, get them involved, get them behind the cause. They're an army. And God knows we need armies working in the right direction and not in the wrong direction today, and spending resources in an appropriate way, basically. The program is also a very egalitarian program because originally the DED, the Department of Economic Development, wanted to control this program. And we said, no way, we're not going to let you allocate this. So basically, if you do the work and you're in a district or your building's on the register, you get the credit, basically, and you don't have to, it's not about who you know, it's about what you do, basically. The program, here's how the program works. The property has to be listed on the register, or it has to be in a district, and it has to contribute to a district. And so you can list properties on the register, or you can form districts and show what buildings contribute to the district. And the building doesn't have to be architecturally significant. It has to be significant from one of three reasons. Architectural is one. Its involvement in the community. So for instance, I put a building on the register that was the first African-American hospital in our community. It was also a teaching facility. So it was part of our cultural history. Another building we're working on right now is an old raincoat factory. It had a great deal to do with the garment industry in St. Louis. And so it doesn't have to be architectural significant, but another building was a tobacco drying factory right across from a Union Station. So it's a great resource, a great tool. The other unique thing about the credit is that it can be used for home ownership. Unlike the federal credit, this program could be used for home ownership. It could be single-family homes, it could be condominiums. God knows we'd like to have homeowners in an urban area when we're rebuilding it also. The National Park Service believes that this program, and they're the people who administer the program at the federal level, believes that this is a preservation program. I don't want to disagree with them, but I believe it's an economic development program. This is a tool, I believe, that can help rebuild America. We've done it in St. Louis, we've done it in Missouri, and we also have a federal legislation. It's also a very elegant financing program because when you get the credit, it's a piece of paper, and you can sell that piece of paper. And it trades for 92 cents to 87 cents on the dollar. So it's a very, very effective tax credit because tax credits usually don't bring that kind of equity, that kind of money into a program. So it's very, very effective. The other thing that's really nice about this program that 46% of the projects were under $250,000. So it got the program down to a very low neighborhood, community kind of level. So we had a lot of big projects also, but we had a lot of small projects that were under $250,000. It also, the program in Missouri has worked in 66 communities throughout our state. That's very powerful. When we go to the legislature and we have that list in our folder of all the communities that have done projects, or all the buildings that are available to that, and we give that folder to every legislator and tell him, this is happening in your community. This can happen more in your community. We can help you rebuild your community. And by the way, our 22,000 realtors, we have people in each one of your districts. And this is one of our priorities. So we need to use our bully pulpit. We need to use the political and power that we have, and we need to develop that power because there aren't effective coalitions working for these issues at the level that I think they can. I'm part of an organization that has 1 million members, and we have a big PAC. And there needs to be, it'd be great if we had 1 million members working on sustainability in the United States and had a big PAC. I wish there weren't PACs, but there are PACs. It's the way I'm afraid things work. So I want to help you kind of develop that political power and that economic power and align those economic interests with this agenda of sustainability, basically. And part of that is about framing the issue. I don't think we do a very good job of framing the issue. Dr. Kane talked about obesity, and she talked about, I just recently heard at a sustainability conference, somebody from New York, I think the head of their public health department, and the element that was left out of that, she told you the percentage. In Missouri, it's about 25% of our population's obese, and the national projection is by 2030, it's going to be 80%. She left out the cost. The cost in the United States is projected by the CDC at $146 billion. So we need to tie these two things together. Pay me now, pay me later. It's a lot cheaper to solve this problem on the front end than it is to solve it on the back end. In 2030, the cost is projected to be $800 to $900 billion to solve the issue of obesity, basically, and diabetes. There's just no reason that we can't frame these issues in a much better way. So we frame the issue as an elegant program. It's the ultimate job creator, historic tax credit. The Wall Street Journal called it a national model. We've created 43,000 jobs according to the Department of Economic Development and Rutgers University. They've got a great preservation economist there. We've created $2.9 billion in private investment. And for every dollar that's spent, $1.78 in state and local taxes comes back to that. So here's my contact information. I'd be happy if you write me, if you just put Indianapolis or this conference in the title, because I get about 200 emails a day. And I'd welcome your thoughts and your feedback. Thank you very much.